Today I'm going to be replacing the timing belt and water pump on this Hyundai Tucson. First I'm going to remove these 4 bolts holding the engine cover on. They are 10 millimeter. The front passenger side wheel is also going to need to be removed. These are 21 millimeter lugs. We also need to remove this little cover here in the wheel well. These are 10 millimeter bolts. There's one here, there's one right here, and then there's one over here, and I think that's it. Nope, there's one more right here. Alright, I already removed the serpentine belt. Tensioner is right there. I just used the normal 3/8 ratchet. Just stick it. There's a little slot down there that you stick it in, and then you release the tension. And it gets caught between the tensioner and the engine. Next, we need to get this power steering pump out of the way. There's a 10 millimeter up here, and then you have to go through this pulley. There's a 14 millimeter there, and then on the other side there's a 14 millimeter right there. Next I'm going to remove this tensioner. It's held on by a 12 millimeter bolt. So that tensioner actually had 2 12 millimeter bolts holding it on. This crankshaft pulley also needs to be removed. It is a 22 millimeter. Now I have the engine supported from underneath with another jack, because we need to remove this engine mount over here. These are all 17 millimeter bolts. That idler pulley down there also needs to be removed. 17 millimeter bolt holding it on. It's kind of hard to get to. You might need to use some wrenches like I am to get it loosened up. There are 2 bolts holding this mount to the engine. It's kind of hard to see from up top. I had to go underneath to see them, but there's one right here, and then there's one right below it as well. You can see them down here. Those 2 right there. They are 14 millimeter. Alright, this bracket is seized on here pretty well. I've checked around to see if there's another bolt that I missed, and I can't find any spot for there to be one. So I'm going to start removing these bolts to this timing cover. Looks like there's one here, one here, one here. These are all 10 millimeter. There's one here. It's 10 millimeter as well. One here. There's one up here. Over here. Here. There's one here. Here, 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 here. I think I might have planted that one from up top. Alright, I got those covers off. This does not need to be removed. Well, no it does. Okay, it's got some bolts underneath the cover that need to be removed, because this belt is going to need to be removed and it runs right through it. So this needs to wait until that cover comes off. The cover comes off in 2 pieces. This is the bottom piece. It's got 5 bolts that held it on. And then the top piece, it had 7 pieces that held it on. So now we do need to remove this. It's got one bolt right there holding it on. All right, there is another bolt holding this on. It's right underneath this pulley. And these are both 14 millimeter as well. That one down there was 14 millimeter. This one right underneath this pulley is 12 millimeter. All right, so I'm ready to take this belt off now that I've got everything lined up. I use this camshaft here. It's got a 17 millimeter bolt on it. Always turn it clockwise with these. That's the way that they spin. On these sprockets, there's a white dot for the timing mark there, and then there's a little slot here. It's the same on this side. Underneath here, as you can see, this was already just about to slip, but I believe that that is your indication right there, and then there's a little groove back here. So now I'm ready to start taking this pulley off. This is 14 millimeters. All right, I've got that belt removed. Now I'm ready to start removing these water pump bolts. They are 12 millimeter. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. And actually, I think I'm gonna need to remove that tensioner pulley down there first. It's a 14 millimeter for that one bolt holding that on. All right, so now I need to clean this area up where the thermostat or the water pump is going to go. And I also need to remove those two bolts that hold the tensioner on. Those are 12 millimeter. So I've got the new gasket mocked up there. It's being held on. There's some little pins that stick out. There's two of them. So they're kind of holding that in place. So I'm ready to go ahead and throw the new water pump on. And we're going to be careful not to mess up the gasket or to knock it off. All right, I got that water pump on there. It was a bit tricky to get it wedged in there under this cover, because you got to get it under there and then like slide it up into place, especially with that paper gasket. So, but I eventually got it all lined up. These bolts are all hand tightened. These need to be torqued down to about 15 foot-pounds. Now I'm going to put this new tensioner on. Don't pull that pin until we get the new belt installed. I had to swap this new pulley onto this old bracket. So now we're ready to install this. Alright, so I'm ready to start installing this new timing belt. Sometimes they've got arrows pointing which way it's supposed to turn or rotate. This one doesn't, so I'm just going to have all the letters and numbers facing out towards me. Alright, so I've got the belt on there. I've got all my pulleys on there. Made sure everything's still lined up after I got everything on. This one is kind of hard to see over there, so I can use the camera to check, because I can get the camera basically right on it, but I can't get my head over there. And then you check down here. So everything's all lined up. Going to want to make sure you've got the belt pressed on to everything completely over all the pulleys. Also, these pulleys for the idler and the tensioner bracket are about 40 pounds foot torque. The tensioner itself is about 25 foot-pounds for those bolts. So we're ready to go ahead and pull this pin now. Alright, I got the 2 bolts that go under the cover, the timing belt cover for this bracket installed. So next is to do the timing belt covers. Alright, I've got that cover back on. I've got the engine mount back on. Took the jack that was under it out from under it. So now I'm going to start putting the crankshaft pulley back on and that cover down there. Put the wheel back on, and then I'll just have everything up here left to do. Alright, I got everything down there put back together. The crankshaft pulley, that cover down there. I got the idler pulley down here put back on. The tensioner pulley bracket put back on. Put the power steering pump back on. Put the serpentine belt back on. So now all that's left to do is put the engine cover back on and start it up and check for leaks. We should be all good as long as there's no leaks. Thanks for watching. God bless. And don't forget to add more fluid when you're done.